Yeah, I forgot to set up the you know what, Secretary, I forgot to set up the live stream to YouTube, so it's going to record it and we'll upload that later. So this is the notice that Lucy's entered the waiting room. This is a notice that this meeting will be recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube/Facebook for record. So don't say anything that you don't want recorded for the rest of the meeting. So here is the agenda. It was sent out earlier by the Deputy STEM Convenor. And as you can see, we've got quite a few things to go through. A lot of them will be quick, but there's quite a packed agenda this evening. So first of all, minutes from the last meeting were sent around. Are there any amendments that people would like to submit for those minutes? That'll be a no. Fantastic. I saw, no, Grundle isn't behind me. Sorry, I just saw the welfare officer mention Grundle in chat. Kira entered the waiting room. Deputy, if I could ask you to, like, as people enter, to just periodically send in a notice for recording.
Yep.
There, I know there is like a recording on the Zoom as well. There is a notice on the Zoom as well, but just so people are very aware. Okay, so there's no amendments to the minutes. Do we approve those minutes? Just raise your hand, I suppose. I meant like physically raise your hand if you approve the minutes. Yeah, okay. I'm assuming if you've got your camera off, you also approve. Speak now or forever hold your peace if you don't. Okay, and there was no matters arising submitted for these minutes, were there, Deputy?
Nope.
Okay, so on to the first item of the actual agenda. So the Christmas Council was quite a long ways away, well, quite a long time ago, but there was an incident at the Christmas Council. A lot of STEM reps raised to me privately in the Slack. It was also something I was personally quite annoyed about. And I said I would raise it at Union Forum on your behalf. And that I did. It was a while ago. I'd almost forgotten about this myself, but this is the first faculty assembly we've had since Christmas Council. So this is just me reporting back. So the incident that I'm referring to was the provost giving an address. So the provost was invited to speak to council, ostensibly to basically say Merry Christmas. And anyone that was at Christmas Council will know that he said quite a bit more and ended up derailing the entire thing. And it was a whole bit of a mess. And from a personal standpoint, and from what people said to me in Slack messages, was that it seemed like a bit of a disrespect to class reps and to representatives in general, that tougher questions weren't asked. So I raised this at Union Forum, and there are other members of Union Forum here, so I'm sure they might like to weigh in. But my summary of discussion and the minutes of that Union Forum will be at next council, I believe. I don't think they're submitted in time for the previous council. The summary of discussion was that, yes, it was a bit of an institutional failure on behalf of the union, and I put in the agenda as an explanation and an apology. I was also part of the institutional failure. In council, apart from the chair of council and secretary of council, we are all equal members. So I had as much ability as the sabbatical officers or any other officer to try and put a stop to what we saw as a derailment of council. I did not do that. I held my silence. So this is my apology to you. As an officer, I should have used my seniority to put a stop to that when I was annoyed, and other people were annoyed as well, but I didn't. So that was a bit of a failure on my part. And when you see the minutes from Union Forum, you'll see that other officers also acknowledged their individual failures, and it all came together to what happened at council and what annoyed a few people. But after that discussion, I personally, at least, am satisfied that everyone that was involved took ownership. And I think, yeah, it was a mistake we made, but we're not going to make it again. And I might invite the president, as he is here, to say what his opinion on it.
Sure thing. Thanks, STEM Convenor. There's not much else to say from what you've already said, to be honest. Yeah, it was a bit of a failure on our behalf. We had the perfect opportunity to really grill him and ask more tougher questions on behalf of students in a very open form, a very public and open form too. And yeah, we didn't do it. So it was, as the STEM convener said, an institutional failure. And it's important that we do take, I suppose, responsibility and accept failure on behalf of that, to ensure that, at least if nothing else, we can remember those emotions, remember those feelings of regret, I suppose, not to make it too kind of too much out of it, but remember those feelings of regret, just so that when it does happen again, that we can look back and think, okay, I need to ensure that I ask tougher questions and really get to the bottom of those things and represent students in the way that they feel represented, rather than just asking silly, frivolous questions about Christmas dinner and whatever else shite we talked about. But yeah, like I said, STEM convener summed it up quite well, so there's not much else really say about it.
I also noted this point that I think the PowerPoint captions have slightly given up. So I'll keep them on, but I think I'll note at this point, this experiment hasn't gone very well. But yeah, unless there's any questions about anything about that. No, I don't see anyone. Oh, natural sciences convener.
Yep, hi. I have a question. Sorry, Julie Piaskova, she, her, natural sciences convener. Is there any way to maybe get the provost to come to the next council so we can actually ask him the tough questions? Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, I can take this if that's okay.
Present.
I have reached out to actually organise a personal Q&A with the provost, but the provost secretary responded back saying that due to final months of his commitments, having less than 6 months left, I believe, it's not something that he has time to commit to. I can reach out. I would like to reach out on third council and invite the provost and the provost-elect to come to council as well for, I suppose, an introduction, but also a Q&A if we can facilitate that as well. But I've also reached out to the vice provost to see if the vice provost is willing for a Q&A too.
Right. Actually, so sorry, I have another question actually about this, because I just checked and the provost elections are on the 10th of April, right?
Yep.
So I'm assuming, are we having another council before or after that?
I will point out that we will have TCSU is holding its own hustings for the provostial candidates on the 29th.
Oh yeah, okay. I was gonna ask about that, if we will be able to like ask the candidates questions and all that stuff. Okay,
yeah,
that's all from me. Thanks.
Grand, no worries. Thank you.
Yeah, there will be a whole dedicated hustings hosted by TCSU for the provostial candidates, because at this point, as the president mentioned, the provost is on the way out. So any more questions, concerns, is probably more relevant to go to the provostial candidates rather than Mr. Prendergast himself. Yeah, Liam has just pointed out that the captions are getting some interesting things. Okay, so next thing, remote access PCs. So I can't remember who sent this to me, but someone asked me a question about remote access computers in the Hamilton, because there's a lot of specialized software that a lot of STEM students use that is usually only available on college computers. Now I put in a question to the Slack this evening. I didn't get many responses about software that isn't available in my Trinity apps. So it seems like, so I have been talking to IT services about this, and they're of the opinion that for the vast majority of students, what is available on what's called a total academic headcount license. That means you can download it onto your own computer. Most software is available. So that's like RStudio or SPSS or AutoCAD or SolidWorks, or any of those sorts of things that you may want to use, that is usually available, say, in the East End PC Labs or in the Snion PC Labs. You should be able to download that onto your own computer. And I said in the Slack, I'm going to say it again, that if there are any software you don't use, you should email me so I can raise guff about that. But what I want to talk about is remote access. So IT services told me that they are trialing something that you'll be able to remote access college PCs. So I know the School of Engineering already has something of their own. School of Computer Science already has something of their own. But for anyone that perhaps doesn't have a good laptop, maybe they have a Chromebook that can't actually run software, there is a trial going on. There's 60 concurrent licenses available, so it's a very small trial. But if you are one of these people that need software and can't get it on My Trinity apps or can't run it on your laptop because you have, because you don't have, you have a Chromebook or anything like that, then you can email IT services and try and get enrolled in this trial. So I ask that people publicize that to their class as well, because as I said, there's only these 60 concurrent licenses, which clearly isn't enough, but that is with a view to getting more access after a while. It's just that the software, I think it's called Parallel RAS, has to go through Trinity security validation. So it's just going through that at the moment. But if there's like a lot of interest in it, that'll be sped up. Is there any questions on that? No, cool. Tutorial videos, yes. Okay, so last faculty assembly that I was at, I know that the deputy was deputized for the last one, but the last one I was at, I committed to making tutorial videos on Excel and LaTeX, and also how to access LinkedIn Learning. And that has not been done yet. Just various things have come up. I kept forgetting to do it. It's now written up on my wall. I have the script written. I have actually recorded most of the Excel tutorial. I'm just putting it together. So that will be done in the next 2 or 3 days. I hope to get it done today, but then one of my assignments fell apart last night, so I kind of prioritize that. But yeah, I'm not going to hide behind the fact that I said I was going to do that. I just haven't done it. So that's the update for me, in that that thing isn't done yet, but it is coming in the next few days. If anyone is still looking for that. Any questions on that? Cool. The Excel work balancing tool. Okay, so this is more question to you guys. I put in the agenda that I made an updated one, and I have made an updated one. But before I actually send that out, I figured I would use this room and ask about any feedback you had with using the old one. So have any STEM reps actually used the work balancing tool to try and get assignments moved around with their lecturers? I know at least one person has, because they said they used it and it scared them. Who said it scared them?
I think that was someone in the education committee.
Yeah, I think they're here as well. Rian, was it you?
No comment at this time.
Cameron's waiting on percentages. Okay, so you have started using it, Cameron. Does it scare you as well? Appreciate it did look a little scary, but it did help with balancing. Okay, so it was helpful. I'll pull up the actual spreadsheet for people that haven't looked at it. So this is the work balancing spreadsheet if you haven't actually looked at it. Appreciate one of our lecturers change your assignments because okay, so it is getting used. That's good. So is there any feedback on what could be improved on this? Julian is pulling an interesting face. Rian says his fear is perfectly reasonable. Rory, you have your hand up.
I think it just needs like a third row for when the assignment is given, because if I have an assignment during week 13, but only get it in week 11, if I enter say 5% in week 13, it assumes I received in week 1, and then the time is spread out over 13 weeks instead of just the 2 weeks that would have been given, since that's all it has.
Yep. A bit of explanation how to read the bottom that took way longer than needed. That's from Krishy. Yeah, so sales is like relevant to what Rory just said there. At the bottom here is for that kind of manual adjustment, but I'm trying to figure out how to get is using VLOOKUP, which never works well for me. So the second version it's basically you input a list of an assignment, the module, how much it's worth, and then when it's given and when it's due, and then it'll automatically divide the times. It's just a little bit funky That's why it's not done yet. Is this the little funky getting VLOOKUP working, because I hate that function. But yeah, that the second version is instead of inputting how much percentage is due yourself, you just put in a list of assignments and it automatically calculates it. So it's a bit more sophisticated tool, but it's the same principle. Okay, if there's no more comments, we shall keep on to next things. Okay, Code First Girls. This, I think I sent this out directly. I know I definitely put it in the weekly email. So Code First Girls reached out to the president back in like October, and then I think he forgot about it for a month, and then he emailed it to me, and then I forgot about it for a month. But then we collectively remembered, and Code First Girls have been very kind to organize some Python classes for Trinity students. So these are free. They're starting next week. Signups are still available, but I will say that while registration is still available, more people have applied than there are spaces. Okay, so the course is currently oversubscribed, but after discussion with, amongst other people, the deputy STEM convener, we'll still encourage people to apply, because that'll show that more people are very, very interested. So I might invite the deputy to speak on this, because there's something we do disagree on.
Yes, basically this discussion happened in the diversity in STEM Slack, because we were planning a graphic to go up over the weekend, but there was a bit of a debacle about the hex code for SU Blue, so we put it off until Monday, and then the graphic was put up, and then we found out that the course was oversubscribed, and myself and an ordinary member on the diversity and STEM committee kind of agreed that for as long as the registration link stays live on the Code First Girls website, we're going to leave our post up, because we kind of view diversity in STEM and that Instagram page as sort of like signposting towards Code First Girls. So I suppose it's kind of us saying it's not our fault if it's oversubscribed, but kind of pointing people in that direction anyways, because there is a very small chance that they might increase the capacity. So that's our logic behind it, but it is something that me and the STEM community disagree on.
Yeah, so I'll give my reasoning just before you jump to share it with your classes. So the reason I was hesitant to share it with diversity in STEM, and the reason I'm going to say to you, if you might consider this before sharing it with your own classes, is that I think it's better for engagement with these sorts of things going into the future if people don't get disappointed. I suspect from Liz's message into the chat that she might be one of these people who could be turned away, and I think that's bad for engagement with people being turned away. I think it's better if we just kind of let it silently, like once it's full up, we just silently let it run, and then if people miss it, I think it's better for engagement that they think they just, oh, I just didn't see it, I'll keep an eye out in the future. I personally think that's better for engagement in the future, but this is just something we disagree on. So figured may as well give you both perspectives, so you can make a decision on whether you want to share that link with your course or not. And the link again is in the agenda. Any questions on that? No, okay. Next thing, additional costs. Okay, is the physics convener here yet? Yes, he is. Yeah, so I'm going to speak about it, and I'll ask Julian to speak as well. So we sent out a survey to all of you to fill out about additional costs that are mandatory in your course. So you cannot complete your degree without paying these fees. These are generally things like lab coats and lab manuals and all these sorts of things. But I'm going to highlight the example because this is the reason that we sent out this survey, because this is an issue that we believe we're going to be able to get fixed. So anyone that takes modules in the School of Physics, you will have heard of this thing, Mastering Physics from Pearson, costing €40. That, I mean, as far as I can tell, and as far as everyone who sat the modules has told me, is essentially just a second version of Blackboard, except the lecturers don't want to write the assignments themselves, so they get you to pay for someone else to do it. And in defense of the school, they sent us a reply today saying that they do subsidize the cost. It would normally cost 100 extra euro, whereas it's only costing you 40 extra euro. Myself and Julian are preparing our reply at the moment, going through all the different ways they're breaking college policy, and also just kind of reminding them of the fact that students of the School of Physics are already paying 3,000 euro to the college to get a physics education. It's not really appropriate for them to tell you to then pay 40 euro to someone else for them to give you a physics education. That's not the School of Physics giving you an education, that's School of Physics giving you a referral. The School of Physics are not influencers. We kind of expect them to do something instead of just telling you other businesses to get services from. But this is just an example of the additional cost survey, and there's other things identified, but this is something that, this is why we got the survey, is because I think this is a good example of a problem we might actually get to solve. Unfortunately, of course, if you've already paid the 40 euro, you're not going to get the 40 euro back. But for incoming first years, this might be something we can fix going forward. So I'm going to invite the physics convener to sum up on that.
Yeah, so we had a chat. It was put in the agenda for the executive, pulled out of the agenda. And then they took a few days and they sort of summarized their thoughts. I will be getting a full financial breakdown on the situation from Colm Stevens at a future executive, which I'll hold him to, but he's been kind of slippery this last week. But yeah, they've tried to justify it over this email that I'm happy to forward to any of the students if they do want to read it. But they seem to think this whole thing is justified and that they've actually done you a favor. So, but no, we'll try to get rid of the Mastering Physics book and just justify it in the fact that the Blackboard platform is more than good enough to do what they're currently doing.
There was a great bit in, so Colm Stevens is school admin officer or school manager. I can't remember, different schools have different titles. But he said in his email that Mastering Physics by Pearson is not a VLE, and then went on to use almost the exact college definition of a VLE. It's just kind of a perfect example of them just bold-facedly breaking college policy. And they got very annoyed that we reported them to the vice provost, because the vice provost is the one that has authority over the policy. So when they get annoyed at you for telling an executive officer about something they've done, that implies that the executive officer has listened to you and has given out to them for it. So it means we're making progress. If the school's annoyed at us, it means we're doing something right. So that's the progress on that. Are there any other questions on that? If you are a rep and you've never heard of this additional cost survey, is probably back in your email from the end of January. So if you haven't filled that out, I encourage you to go and find that. If you're in a class with multiple reps and you know that one of them have filled it out, that's fine. We just want to try and capture the information for every course and find out where all the additional costs are. Hamilton Student Space. Yes, this is an exciting thing. And I might invite the president to speak a bit on this as well. So I'm not sure how much, actually no, I'm going to ask the president to speak first because I don't know how much I can say, although I will tell the president that I have sent my full document to all the reps.
Fantastic, thank you, STEM convener. So basically I have a meeting tomorrow with the provost, and the idea is to, with the help of the STEM convener, solely writing a very, very solid proposal to bid for the Bank of Ireland space to remain as a community space after COVID has gone past. So once it is no longer needed as a study space, it will be refurbished and repurposed as a community space for STEM students from the O'Reilly, Hamilton, the Watts, the Smurfit and the Panos locations in that conglomerate of buildings. Ha, got them all. But yes, the plan is to bid for that space to become a student space with microwaves, coffee machines, vending machines, with tables, chairs, and we're looking for 24-hour access. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is because this is everything that we're going for. That's everything that's in the proposal, and it's been kind of put together with the help of SEM convener. Or actually, it was solely written by the SEM convener. we've met up with Anya Kelly to get advice as well, and we got some quotes from different surveys that were conducted from STEM students as well, just around the lack of community and the isolation and the loneliness that is felt amongst those conglomerates of buildings. I don't know, I'm not too sure if there's anything else you want to add in there, STEM convener, but that's basically the gist of it. We're just trying to secure that space for students.
There you go. Sorry, yeah. So I'm throwing up on the screen there. This is like the summary page of the document. If you haven't looked at it, it is linked. The full document is linked in the agenda, but this is a summary thing. So if you've ever been in the Bank of Ireland space, it's kind of a split level. It's got a mezzanine, and we're kind of proposing that the whole thing be taken over and just be a very casual space, just with like food preparation areas and just tables you can sit and chat, because we think that, you know, the spaces that we have in the Hamilton, the East End building, but everyone calls it Hamilton, you know, you've got like the Westland Eats. Obviously you can't really just sit in there. You're kind of expected to pay money to be in there. The actual Zone McLean is just not a pleasant place to be. The Global Room feels like it's managed. Like, I know the Global Room staff, they put in tremendous amount of work trying to make it feel very homely and very open. But if you're in the Global Room, you know, you feel like there's the office in the corner, and you never know when there's going to be an event or a seminar or anything like that. So we're kind of proposing this becomes if anyone who ever has classes in the TBSI, there's a knowledge exchange area. That's the vibe we're going for. I did not use the word vibe in this document, but that is the vibe that we're looking for. Is just this space that like anyone can show up to, and you can kind of do whatever you want, and you can work in group assignments, you can eat, you can just sit and chat. It's just kind of an a non-prescribed space like this. It doesn't have a specific purpose. It's just a place you can go, and this is like one step above the elevator pitch. So don't think that this is going to be in place for September 2021 or anything like this. This is very much an early stage of the process, but our foot is in the door, and this is us getting, I suppose, the knee in the door. But we're getting in there. Are there any comments on the document or just on this summary page, or any questions about any of that?
Can I ask about the bank? I know I asked it this morning, but I'm trying to book it here for tomorrow, and I click different times and different dates and stuff, but it only shows like the arts building and the exam hall.
Yeah, so the bank space is actually closed for level 5, and it's just the exam hall and the Usher library, and then obviously the main libraries that are functioning throughout the day. So unfortunately, it's non-viable at the moment.
Okay, Grant. I just have a lab till 4 and then 2-hour lecture straight afterwards, but I'll find a way.
I mean, when the arts libraries are still open, I would say that if you want the STEM libraries to open again, if you want STEM spaces, make use of the arts ones, because the problem is, and the president can repeat this, is that it's very difficult for us to make an argument that additional space should be open when the space that's already opened still has a lot of capacity left in it. So I don't think we've even broached like 50% peak capacity in the other student spaces. So if you want the STEM spaces to open, keep using the art spaces until there's no space left, and then we have a very good arguing point to say to the college, listen, the seats are all full in the arts end, open up some in the STEM end. But while there are seats open in the arts end, the college is just going to tell us, send people to the arts end.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I think my last update into Slack on the library was quoting 20% occupancy, I think, throughout the day. Well, obviously 20% occupancy is it's a quite low number at the moment. So for the safety of their staff and for resources, they're not going to open up too much more from the central core unless there is a need from a student point of view.
Any other questions or comments? Nope, cool. Oh, this one thing. Get rid of. I wonder, this is just some fun notes as well when the president's here, actually. Another idea, which is again very, very early stages, but we're going to see what we can do, is we're going to see if we can get these windows knocked through and put a wee ramp here, because I'm sure there'll be freshers here that haven't seen this space, but anyone that has been in Hamilton, you will know that there's a weird bit of walkway that just goes to a wall and doesn't seem to exist for any reason. And it just splits off the Zone MacLean from the bit that actually has lecture halls. So that's just kind of annoying that you have to go down the steps and up again. It's also like a very legitimate accessibility issue, because if you know where the lifts are in the Hamilton, they're at either end of a very long building. So if you are if you need to use a lift to transit between floors, then to get from, say, the McNeil to the Zone MacLean is such a long travel, it's really not worth it. Whereas if we knock this window through, which it looks a pretty good shape for knocking through, and then put a ramp in, then the Zone MacLean might get a bit more use, and it might make it a bit more of a pleasant place to be. We haven't talked to anyone about that yet. We have no idea how feasible it is, but that's just something we're working on at the moment. That's just a fun note. There's many, just for the minutes, I will say there's many people in the chat imploring us to break the window. We did consider, like, what if we're just moving the couches and have a bit of an accident? But as you can see, someone took our couches. Not sure, did we ever figure out where those couches went, Owen?
No, I remember briefly back in like July, a premises manager emailing very angrily about students standing there congregating, God forbid. So I have a cheeky suspicion that the premises manager has taken all the couches away and put them in storage, but just hasn't told us or announced it.
For reference, those are our couches. Those aren't the college's couches, those are ours. They stole our couches. And also, this just another side note, if you happen to be in the Hamilton for labs or anything, for some reason, Trinity News have continued to print their papers, and there's still piles and piles of Trinity newspapers. So for the sake of the planet, I suppose, go take them so they don't just go straight from the printing press to the recycling bin. You know, if you happen to be in the building and you'd like to read Trinity News, go and pick up a copy. There's also Piranha, if you're into the Piranha, and I suppose TN2. But yeah, that's just some information that up in the student space that no one uses because there's no couches or anything. Trinity Publications having continued to publicate. I realize that's not a verb, but I'm sticking with it. Okay, discussion items. Oh, first, before we move on to discussion items, is there any broad questions that anyone has for me in my role, or anything that, because this is the end of my worker report. So any just broad questions that haven't been covered by anything else I've said. How's it going? I mean, it's going. I've slept about 6 hours in the last 2 days because one of my assignments fell apart last night, so I had to stay up for that. But I'm planning a really good sleep tonight, so I think it's going good. I'm not answering that question, Julia. That's a loaded question. Okay, so there's no constructive questions being asked, so we'll move on to discussion items. And the first discussion item shall be a school convener update. So finally, you'll hear a voice that isn't mine. So we shall start off with our engineering convener, if he is here, Jack O'Leary. Is Jack present? Jack doesn't seem to be here, so instead we will move on to the natural sciences convener, who has just angrily noted that I left her off the slide. So apologies for that, Julia. We'll get an update from Julia, the natural sciences convener.
Hi, Julia, she, her, natural sciences convener. I'm not on the slide, so that's okay. Well, what have I done this semester? Most of it was just dealing with the School of Natural Sciences, which is in Fire. Most of it was really done with my class reps. Currently working on a supervisor meeting with third and fourth years. But yeah, nothing particularly of note, honestly. Like, I'm just watching my class reps do everything themselves because they don't need me. They do everything themselves. I'm just kind of here. I exist. Though apparently I don't because I'm not on the slide. So, you know, that's all for me. It's fine. Just forget about me, damn. It's okay.
I'd like to once again apologize to the Natural Sciences convener. Next, we will have the chemistry and also science course convener, Thomas.
Everything's going slightly well. We had a tough first semester in chemistry, and I'm just remaining hopeful that it goes better this semester. I made Mike Lyons sure of it, that we were all not happy, and he did not like that we weren't all happy. I'm just science-wise, the science program meetings are going really well. Ani Kelly is very in tune with what's going on across all the disciplines, and yeah, that's mainly it. There's a teaching and learning committee meeting tomorrow with the chemistry, but I can't go because I will be making stuff in the labs. Hopefully they're blue, because today they were purple. So
Should probably clarify that this is part of your course. You're not just like doing amateur chemistry hoping for blue stuff.
it's inorganic. Like we
There's a TV
used
show about
cobalt
this.
today. I think it's like nickel tomorrow. So
Okay, that's good. It's good that chemistry is doing the student staff liaison, even if Mike Lyons is confused why people aren't happy. He's such a fun man. He does listen, but he doesn't always like do what he's told.
he listens, but he says COVID as COVID, which that tunes me out. He just calls it COVID all the time, and it just can't.
Oh, I'll never unhear that now.
Yeah, so sitting in meetings with 3 hours with him and just going COVID, and you're like, oh God.
Oh, you've cursed me, Thomas. I'm never going to be able to hear that. Okay.
Like, you can sit in the meetings then.
Let's try. I have a meeting with him every month. I'm the faculty exec.
Oh yeah, fair.
And almost all of that is about like COVID. Okay, so next we'll move on to genetics and microbiology. So that's Clara. Is Clara here?
She sent apologies.
Clara has sent apologies. Biochemistry and immunology. Caroline.
Hello, I'm pronounced she, her. I'm the biochemistry and immunology convener. So we didn't have many problems, I'd say, during the first semester. It was mostly, since our lectures in the school are mostly pre-recorded ones, we have usually the problem of lecturers not putting their lectures on time. So it's been a bit of just like emailing all the time lecturers to put their lectures on time, but sometimes it's not even their fault because their timetables are wrong, or they've put it in a folder and it's not the correct folder. So that was mostly our problems. Otherwise, I'd say everyone was doing well, I'd say. Well, from the feedback I got anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much it for our school.
Yeah, on the note of what Caroline just raised there about lectures being uploaded to a timetable, it has been said to all the heads of school to encourage this. So don't feel, as a rep, you are entitled to ask for this. Like, this has been asked for at many different levels. I believe it's been asked of all the Duttles as well, as the Director of Undergraduate Teaching and Learning. So the school management have been asked, none of them have objected. So don't feel bad about asking your individual lecturer as a rep if they aren't doing that, because it is something that has been acknowledged by various forms of management that should be happening. Okay,
yeah, if I could just add on that, just really don't hesitate, because sometimes some of the lecturers don't even realize that their timetables are wrong or that they've put it in the wrong folders. So really don't hesitate to even email them at the beginning of the week when they're supposed to put them, to be like, oh, just wondering when they're going to be posted, because to organize myself during the week, because they won't mind at all.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Caroline. Next we shall have, oh dear. Next we shall have computer science and statistics, which is Matthew Henry.
Yep, so hi, I'm Matthew, SQSS convener, he, him. I'm not going to bore everybody with a ton of casework because that's basically been all I've been doing. SCSS has had plenty of really fun issues. And for the amount that come across my desk, I know that my reps are dealing with 2 or 3 times more. So it's all kinds of fun. Always a new problem, always a new half-ass solution. Yeah, so beyond that, really, it's just been mostly casework. I had a UGTLC yesterday, and that's been kind of primary thing to be doing, is going to a lot of different meetings with the various academic committees and groups. There's a fair few changes coming into SCSS over the next little while. CSL especially is getting some reworks, which I'm sure all the CSL students will be really glad to hear. I mean, it won't affect most of you guys, unfortunately, but I mean, it's probably going to happen at some point. But yeah, mostly just casework and dealing with things. I think our most entertaining problem at the moment is there's at least 3 modules across 3 years. No, 2 modules now across 2 years that still don't have exam results, which is good. One, which is actually the 2nd year in a row that exam results have failed to make it into SITs, which is really cool. It's impressive when things don't improve, even though there's been the ban hammer threatened towards certain lecturers. But look, nothing's changed in SCSS. It would be nice to have a few weeks of quiet, but here we are. So yeah, that's just me. Thanks for my reps. They're all kicking ass as usual. So yep, that's SCSS as usual for everybody.
Yes, it's often hard to tell like what schools are actually worst and which schools just complain the most, but SCSS is definitely the worst. Like if you are a class rep in school computer science statistics, I kind of love your sacrifice.
Yeah, you definitely dealt with like every problem twice by now.
And
there's new ones every year.
It's a different level.
Yeah, CSL is like the nexus of all bad things in SCSS. So you can imagine where that is. Sorry, Mary, and all the rest of you guys. That's pretty grim. But yeah, that's SCSS. No different from usual.
Yeah, I'm just going to address something I've said in the chat by Grace Craig. The captions are only being picked up from my microphone. So the reason it half picks up everyone else is because it's only picking up like from the speakers back into the microphone, which obviously there's software going on to try and stop that kind of feedback from happening. So it's a bit of a losing battle. So that's why it's only getting full sentences from me. I believe if I'd known that ahead of time, I had a meeting right before this, so I didn't get a chance to check this. For next time, I'll try and set up a virtual microphone in OBS and run that through. And Matthew Henry is laughing because he knows it's going to go badly, but we'll try it anyway. And hopefully we'll get captions from everyone. But I mean, the accuracy isn't that bad considering the accent is trying to deal with. But yeah. So next we have School of Maths, which is Shane Keane. Do we have Shane?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, go for it.
Perfect. So hi guys, Shane Keane, he, him, School of Maths convener. There hasn't really been much to update on. There was a school exec meeting where it was an hour and 20 minutes about talking about who would ask what questions to the provost elects. And then that was pretty much it. There was a module that there's been a complaints about the marking scheme of it. So just to remind anyone of any school, if you have a paper or a result that you're not happy with, go and check your paper and then write your complaints and stuff, just because it's obviously there are issues with like not enough attempt marks being given and the whole, it's obviously a tough year for everyone. So it's something that should be looked at. So just try fight your case anyway. And yeah, besides that, there isn't too much to update on. So just let me know if there's any problems or anything and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Cheers.
Yeah, TP is another course with the mastering physics stuff as well. With them, yeah, from Pearson. That's relevant to you guys as well. But as we said, unfortunately, won't be fixed. If you're a rep right now, that means you've already paid the €40. But at least you know the people that come after you might have a better time of it. Okay, next we shall have the Deputy and Biological and Biomedical Sciences Convener, Bev.
Thank you, Bev Janaki, she, her, Biology Convener. Basically, there hasn't been a lot in TRO60. I'm in constant communication with the reps. So any issues that come up, we kind of flag them like that. We're organizing a moderatorship fair to happen maybe next week. On top of that, I haven't had any school executive meetings this semester, which I'm a little bit skeptical of because there's issues in first semester where I missed a few because I was being left off the mailing list. So I'm kind of suspecting that might have happened again. But I've sent emails to the administrative officer and hopefully that'll be addressed soon. That's everything.
I'll just say to anyone that sits on a committee, primarily the school committees, if you want to raise stink about being left out of meetings, which I suspect the TRO60 convener is the only person this happens to regularly. But if you email me, I'll forward it on. But the person to contact to raise stink isn't the dean of the faculty, because she'll ignore it. It's the faculty administrator, a woman by the name of Katie O'Connor, who is the absolute powerhouse of the faculty. Like, honest, like if you haven't encountered her, Katie is what makes the faculty of STEM work. If any sort of that sort of like just random admin stuff with being left out of meetings, Katie will deal with that, because she's a big believer in just following the rules, which not all the school execs are. Some of them are like, we know we're literally legally, like it's in the Universities Act 1997, required to have a student rep. But what if we don't? But no, Katie will amend that. So if you are left out, anyone, if you're invited to a school exec or anything like that, primarily for conveners, but she is the person to raise stink with. And if you contact me, I can forward you on, or you can find her yourself. And last but not least, we have physics with Julian.
Yeah, so I guess to follow on, in the past few months, I've been working on the mastering physics stuff with the schools. That's been a bit of a back and forth, and I'll update you sort of when things start to move on a bit more. Other than that, we had a 3-hour long exec last Friday, and we talked about timetabling at the end. So I sent it in, but essentially the school didn't want to put live or non-live recorded events on the timetable because it started to cause clashes. So that was their reasoning behind it. But David O'Regan, the Director of Undergraduate Teaching and Learning, is going to send an update round to all the year heads, asking them to sort of keep on track and to be more clear in when they're going to upload things. So that's sort of the main two changes.
Hey, they can't schedule the lectures because they're causing clashes.
When they put in, say, like a pre-recorded lecture,
like your normal lectures, like you shouldn't have too much class that they can't be scheduled.
That's what you'd think, that just pick a time, put it somewhere. But apparently, once they start trying to put live things in, they get confused.
On the computer. Oh, there we go, recording. Fantastic. Okay, so has Julian made it back? Yes, Julian has made it back. Is there anything else that needs to be said about school physics?
Oh, really? Things just aren't great there right now, I guess. But let me know if you have any issues, and I'll bring them to the next executive or the Physical Sciences Committee.
Excellent. Well, I guess we shall move on then. So after we'll give people a bit more chance to move in. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of like in the olden days when security used to come and kick us out of the physical room. It was a sign. It got to 7 o'clock. It was like, you should be done by now. But unfortunately, we still have quite a bit to talk about. We don't get to go to the pub. So why'd you have to say that, Henry? How do you plan on minuting that?
I'll come up with something reasonably creative.
An impromptu break was taken.
Yeah. Meeting temporarily adjourned.
A short recess was called by Bev's computer. Okay, I'd say anyone who's going to come has come by now, so.
We retained a lot of people, I'll give us that.
I mean, yeah, fair play to you for not just using that as an excuse to vote. I absolutely would have. Okay, so next thing we have, I believe, after us, unless anyone has any questions for any of the school conveners. No questions. Okay. Next item is an update on diversity in STEM, and that's being given by the Deputy Bev.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe my computer was not ready for the diversity in STEM update. Yes, everything is going great with diversity in STEM. We launched a podcast. It's actually done really well. It's gotten well over 100 listens, which I suppose doesn't sound really good, but when you consider diversity in STEM and the amount of people that it traditionally would have gotten into a room, having over 100 listens on a podcast is really good. And then on top of that, we've started working with the Equality Office regarding pronouns on virtual learning environments. It's kind of still in its early days, but they seem to be on board. Kind of the only issue might be that people might abuse that, because kind of currently you can do it by changing your name, which is not kind of a feature we're sure that the college are aware of. So we want to run it through the Equality Office and make sure everything is above board. But yeah, there's some more diversity in STEM podcasts to come in the next week and a half. So please tune into those. Thank you.
Yeah, and just like to explain the pronouns VLE thing, by that we're taking like a two-prong approach. We're one, trying to get it set in as like a proper field, so you like set it with a drop down or something. But the temporary thing is which is more what the committee is doing with the VP EDI, Claude Brook, is like we do in the SU, where you can see in my own name, a lot of the people in chat have it. We have your name, and then you just write in yourself he, him, or she, her, or he, they, or whatever your preferred pronouns may be. So we're just trying to get that promoted rather than prescribed. And the goal is that if we can encourage staff to do it, like if you like look at your module list and all the staff have their pronouns, that'll make it more comfortable for people. Because I know there's I've talked to people who have their dead names on Blackboard and they are aware that it is possible to change it, but they keep their dead name even though they have to like use their dead name in these group assignments or whatever. And I've heard them being dead named in project presentations, all that sort of stuff, and they've just sort of said that it's easier because it's too uncomfortable for them to be the only person that's different. So the idea is that if we promote it, that more people do it. That if you're cisgender and like your pronouns aren't a big deal to you, then that makes it easier for someone whose pronouns are a big deal to them to change their pronouns. For any other questions about welfare officer.
Really quickly, thanks, Convenor. Leah Keogh, Welfare and Equality Officer, she, her. Just to speak to this, and I know I've spoken to the Deputy and Faculty Convenor as well, in relation to the pronouns, just like a point of information. And for those of you who may not know, we have a gender identity and expression policy that it facilitates name change, essentially, for transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming students. And it's a really simple process that students just don't know about. So just for the reps here, if somebody does approach you, you can put them on to me if you like, welfare@ecdsu.org. Basically, they can have their real name kind of on all college documents, on their degree parchment and everything else. So just an FYI.
I believe the welfare officer is now watching YouTube. Okay, so unless there's any other questions for diversity in STEM? No? Okay, cool. Next discussion item. Oh, this is a fun thing. Okay, so this was a thing that we put up at last faculty assembly, but then I, on short notice, had to deputise Bev to lead it instead. But I figured now that I'm here, we will actually look through some of the results together and talk about the bit of the things that it revealed about the faculty in relation to the other two panelists in general. So let me pull up and the link to this is in the agenda. So there's some flavor text. Let's look at the interesting stuff. So by faculty, obviously, you've all seen this many times, I hope. And there's you can see that in general we don't diverge from the other faculties all that much. The ones of interest to me is that if you look at these trends, our faculty is trending worst on the I have a better work-life balance, which is telling me that you guys need to look after yourselves, and can make sure your class are looking after yourselves as well, because it's not good that 70-ish% of people are disagreeing with the 70. Let's add those numbers up. 76% of people are disagreeing with the statement, I have a better work-life balance than usual, which might mean that they've just got normal work-life balance, but I would wager that it probably means they're saying they have a worse one than usual. And welfare officer, do you still have your hand up, or is... do you want to speak again?
No, my bad.
So as I said, apart from that, we're a bit more indifferent than about student well-being. We have the highest level of people neither disagreeing nor agreeing with the college adequately considering student well-being. We trend quite badly on the after completed college work, enough time for extracurriculars and socializing. So that probably links in with the work-life balance, in that, I mean, our apart from health science, obviously still have clinical stuff. We probably have more in-person stuff than average. So I'm not sure how that fits in, but I say that does have an effect. Then pretty much the same all the way around. The indifference on the neither disagree or agree with the supported by the college of professional pursuits is an interesting one. I'd like to actually follow up on that now and ask the room, what do you think is the reasoning that we would trend the highest for neither agreeing or disagreeing with that statement? So why do you think people responding to the survey, they don't even feel unsupported, they just don't feel anything about the college studying supporting their professional pursuits? This is a conversation I had with the president on Monday, and that is my own personal theory. I've got no data to back this up, but it's my own personal theory that a majority, or at least a plurality of STEM students are here, but what I would call a qualification rather than education. Like, I study engineering. I have a pretty good idea that when I graduate, I'm going to be an engineer. If you are studying computer science, you have a pretty good idea at the end of it, you're going to be a computer scientist. So like the pathway for us from degree to career is often clearer than someone that's, say, studying philosophy, where from talking to my friends in philosophy, they tend to go from a philosophy degree into business and management or something like that. So like their actual degree title isn't as related to their eventual career, whereas I think it's more directly related to STEM in general. So I think it's interesting that with that, that's my own theory, I've got no data on that, but with that theory, I think it's interesting that people are kind of indifferent. So Alexander, Farron, people don't know what they want to do. Linearity, STEM is here for a piece of paper, a very extensive receipt. No real theories about why people feel indifferent. Like, do you guys feel supported by the college in your professional pursuits? Do you guys feel like you're being set up well for a career? Matthew Henry has his hand up.
I suppose speaking from computer science, and I guess from a personal point of view more so than any kind of data backing it up, I think it's that a lot of the time, especially by the time you get to maybe the end of second year and third year in computer science anyways, you realize that the course is very far behind what you'll be doing kind of in industry, or what you're doing is, I mean, what you're doing is going to be fairly low level, at least for the first couple of years. And so you're not really supported professionally, I guess. Like even when you get to fourth year, the kind of the higher level modules you do are still very basic, very far behind what you'll actually be doing in industry. A really fine example of it is there's project work that you do in second year and third year, and then modules in third year and fourth year that you already know everything about because you had to teach yourself in the projects. And so you kind of feel like you've reached a point that, you know, you're just there to get the piece of paper and get out, because what you're learning in college or what you're doing in college is only really the surface, if even then, of what you'll actually be doing professionally. I think that's kind of from my point of view more than anything else, and I don't have the data to back that up, but there's a kind of a reasonable amount of anecdotal evidence to support that, I think.
Okay, just before I call on Dylan, because he's handed next, there's a lot of people sending messages into chat. I would ask that anyone that has a mic and is able to speak, if you please speak, just because having two conversations running concurrently makes things very confusing, not only for a discussion, but also for the deputy to minute. It's very difficult to keep track of two discussions happening at once.
Just to say though, if you don't have a mic or you don't want to speak, I will save the chat, but anything super important, please say it loud.
Oh yeah, obviously, like if you don't have a mic, you can chat all you want, even if you have a mic and you just don't want to chat. But I would ask, if you can and if you're comfortable, please use the mic, because it's just easier for it to keep track of if there's only one conversation happening at once. And Dylan, who's your hand up next?
Yeah, Dylan Krug, he, him, JS Environmental Science rep. I just want to disagree with the STEM conveners theory, just anecdotally from my own perspective, that at least coming from biological and biomedical sciences, that we kind of know what we're going to do after we get out. Because obviously we go in kind of thinking we want to be a scientist, but like last year, for example, we had a professor just straight up tell us like, hey, I know a lot of you want to do research. Probably 30% of you at best will do research. The rest of you will be doing something else. And so I think as we go into it, people who wanted to go in academia kind of realize that that might not be an option. And so I think part of the indifference is kind of just low expectations. Like a lot of people don't engage with the career services, or the career services doesn't engage with STEM material a lot. And so of my personal opinion, I think that's where a lot of the indifference is coming from, where it's just that like, well, we just kind of like have to make our own way. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, I fully welcome anyone disagreeing with me, because as I said, I'm basing it on nothing, so my own opinion. So feel free to tell me I'm wrong. Next, Julia.
Yeah, sorry, I just got distracted by something there. But obviously I can't speak for every single school in the faculty, but a big thing in natural sciences is that we don't really know what we want to do, because we're constantly being told that natural sciences is a very competitive field, which is true, as well as that it's just really hard to get a job. You have to do years of volunteering if you want to kind of like, you know, like if you want to do something other than academia, because academia is kind of like the safe option. You either go straight into a PhD after undergrad, or you go do a master's and then get a fully funded PhD or something. If you want to go more into like the industry, it's just really, really tough. And everyone will tell you that. Literally every lecturer in third year has told us that. Fourth year is kind of similar as well. So it's kind of like, if you don't want to go into academia, like what can you really do? Like we're told about all these different companies that like do work in natural sciences, but we're not ever like told like how to work towards like getting a job like that. Like all we're ever told about is academia and research. Like that is all.
Okay. Next, Julian.
Hi, Julian Carlin, he, him, School of Physics convener. So yeah, I'd agree with the previous points. There's a strong support for anything academia, PhD. I get like plenty of emails on various offers from lecturers and things. But once you ask about, you know, going into industry, you just sort of get a shrug. I think I've only got one real email with a possible professional opportunity, and I mean that was a really sort of straightforward application of quantum computing. So it's kind of like, yeah, there's great support if you want to stay in academia. If not, there's nothing. So I guess the mid ground kind of makes sense.
I suppose there is the curse of all of your professors are by definition the people that went into academia. So that might be contributing to that. Mary?
Yeah, I'm just going to build on what Matthew Henry, the CSS convener, said, especially to do with CSL. We mainly just have basic kind of modules, because we're over 3 different what are they called, schools. So yeah, even now in 3rd year, we still have just introductory modules, especially because CSL isn't supposed to be in Trinity in 3rd year, so they weren't prepared for us this year. So yeah, we just very basic modules, and that don't properly prepare us for professional pursuits at this point in time. So yeah, that's just my personal opinion, I suppose, but yeah.
Okay, there are a lot of people raising problems, but I'm curious what people's suggestions are of what could be done differently. Grace?
Grace Butler, SS Chemistry class rep, she, her. Yeah, I think I just kind of want to echo, I suppose, what the physics convener and everybody else kind of whatnot has kind of said in regards to, I think most of, my lab work or even my, practical work has been quite, based towards academia. It's kind of, what is, it's what's we're, kind of based towards, I suppose. I actually do have experience within industry and things like that. And I know that the crossover in what I have learned and done in industry and the crossover in what I've done in college is incredibly slim. It's, there's very little that I carried over from what I learned in college when I was doing those, kind of work placements in industry, that there was very little actually that I could kind of carry over. In regards to, I suppose, what could kind of be done, I suppose the only thing that you can kind of say, it's very general, is student engagement, I suppose. As has already been mentioned, not everybody is suited for academia, not everybody wants to do academia, and not everybody who wants to do it will, get there straight out of their undergrad or whatnot, or, into further education. So I suppose, yeah, that's kind of all I had to say.
There's a thought, what do you mean by student engagement?
Well, I suppose when the attitude, the way I would kind of see it when I was in the lab, I mean, I suppose I haven't been there in a while, was that it was very academia based. This is what you'd be doing, you'd learn a technique and it'd be like, well, you'll revisit this, in 2 or 3 years time when you're, doing your master's or your PhD and things like that. I think for industry, a lot of techniques are extremely specialized or whatnot, but I know from people who have done chemistry degrees in other colleges, it does put us at a little bit of a disadvantage that they have done a lot of techniques, even just general techniques that are used a lot in industry, in pharmaceuticals, in any kind of industry where chemistry, because that's my background, is used, that we don't have, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, so basically the chemistry, the school are preparing you to do research chemistry. They're not focusing enough on
exactly, yeah,
industry chemistry. It's two different types of practice.
Yeah, exactly. I said it in a very, very long-winded way, but I suppose that's kind of the basics of it,
Okay, thank you. Bev?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on, what can we do to address that? And I think it's really important that students engage with the career service. I mean, personally, I've really benefited from the career service through the Laidlaw program, but that's not the only thing that they do. They also have the employability award, which is very industry focused. But on top of that, I mean, I don't think it would be an absurd claim to suggest that the career service maybe broadens the scope of their careers fair. I mean, right now it's very much engineering and law, but if you could expand that to include other things and maybe more arts, media, that sort of thing, because a lot of students, maybe in the general science degree, but even beyond STEM, chances are they won't go on to work in a field directly related to their degree. So if we can kind of facilitate those opportunities by working with career service, I think that might be pretty cool.
I'll note just he says when there with career service and their career fairs. The education officer said it in a meeting. I wish I remember where she said it. But the big issue with the career service is that they get a lot of their funding from the big companies paying to be there. So that severely limits the types of companies that's limiting you to the people that are hiring physicists. Like that's limiting yourself to the Deloittes, to the Ernst and Youngs that are gonna have a large budget for sending people looking for data analysts rather than I'm not really sure what other stuff physicists would do in industry. But that is perhaps a limiting factor. I know the education officer was talking about trying to get that amended in some way, perhaps to get more NGOs. I think she mentioned the career service has waived the fee for NGOs to submit, but that doesn't really solve the problem of you don't get the variety of jobs you get are still going to be quite low because the types of jobs that you perhaps are looking for aren't the types that have the budget to go to a college career fair.
Well, maybe then there's other ways for how do we put students in contact then with the places that don't have all the money to send representatives to careers fairs. Like surely there is a way for us to explore that.
Yeah. Matthew, or sorry, SCSS Convenor?
Yeah, so I suppose on the idea of solutions to an extent, SCSS is making some moves to improve their connection to industry, I suppose catching up with other colleges, with the idea that projects are, so there's 4 project modules, they're all separate effectively in SCSS, or ICS. I think it's offered to CSB as well, and CSL, you should have it next year. I think if you're in first year, DCLRS is getting chopped hopefully soon, which is probably good news for people. But the idea is that to convert those into effectively industry connected projects. So you're effectively taking on almost mentorship with people in industry and connecting it with companies and having that continue over the course of the degree, as opposed to being sort of disparate or very much individual connections to industry. I think that's kind of one of the big things, is that if schools can kind of realize that most of their students aren't going to go into academia, they do need the industry experience or need at least some kind of connection between them. And I think this is very much kind of off my head, but I would imagine that, or hope that most schools or most courses would have at least some connection to industry, even if it's just lecturers that used to be in industry and come back after their professional career to do academia. I think promoting that within courses and kind of having courses structured that, a little corner of it at least provides connection to the industry is really important. And I know SCSS is trying to do that. Whether or not it works, I don't know. A lot of the group project modules have been disasters over the years, so hopefully this improves. Just on the other point, I see people in the chat, for DCRS, it'll be becoming optional, so it will still run. It just won't count any credits, so you'll still be able to go and still have it and that kind of stuff. It's just you won't be penalized if you don't do it, and it's more of an experience to go and attend it, and kind of a sense of community more than anything else. But yeah, that's me anyways.
There's talk at the moment in various places about trying to increase the amount of credit-bearing internship opportunities, across different schools. There's already credit-bearing internships in SCSS and in engineering. I am an engineer. I didn't do the credit-bearing internship. I see Shauna Kelly is in here, so I'm going to ask her if she's been comfortable speaking about what that experience is like. Might raise her hand, but in lieu of the actual engineering convener being here.
Hello.
But, would you like to speak, Shauna? Sorry, Julia and Tamsin. Just this random internship talk.
Yeah, I don't know how other schools do it, but in engineering, basically in 4th year, if you're doing the 5th year, you have the option of taking the 2nd semester as an internship. I thought that was really good. We were given a list of companies who wanted us. There was twice as many internships available as there was students. Then they were all paid. The college wouldn't let us take an unpaid one, and they told us that they'd fight for our case if the internship was unpaid. They assessed us really well. They put it all online really well. They came out and visited everybody in their placement as well where feasible. So I thought that was really good. And it was really helpful because some of the job offers that I have now, they've kind of complemented that. My experience from that internship is what's made them offer me that job too.
I suppose wrapping it back to like the main discussion about this being supporting professional pursuits, do you feel like that was a good support?
Yeah, I thought it was really helpful because it was good that they gave you the opportunity to go get experience, but then they also helped you find that experience as well. You weren't kind of left floating to just come up with something. They made sure that you got somewhere and that it was somewhere of good quality and somewhere that would treat you right as well.
Thank you, Shauna. And I will just give a shout out to Grace Butler, who put in the chat. And if anyone has any questions about chemistry internships, she's offered to speak. But we'll go back to the speaking order now. So, Julian, thank you for waiting.
Yes.
Oh, which one was that?
Julian first.
Hi, Julian Carlin's School of Physics convener, he, him. There is a module in the School of Physics on communications where they do a small bit of sort of relation to industry and possible careers, and the career service is kind of integrated into it. It's just not really fit for purpose. It's a bit outdated. They talk about an Intel internship that no longer exists, for example. So it's just kind of updating things like that. That could be a really useful tool otherwise for actually people getting better knowledge of what they could do in future and what are the possible career opportunities. But instead it's weighted the wrong way towards like, how do you write a reference and things like that, which, maybe you should just point out that career service does that, do it in your spare time.
That sounds like a very wasted LCVP module. Anyone did LCVP? Is LCVP even still a thing? I don't know. It's been a while since I've been in secondary school, but I remember refusing to do that because I thought it was useless. And now I don't know how to write a reference, so I probably should have paid attention. But now, Julia, I'm so sorry.
You're just
Julia,
really
natural
not getting
sciences
any
convener.
cookie points today. Anyway, Julia Piasco, she, her natural sciences convener. I was just gonna say that for those who are in natural sciences, it's never done through the actual School of Natural Sciences, but ZUSOC actually every year have a careers event together with ZUSOC and BARSOC and BOTSOC, and we try to bring in as many people from industry as possible, and that's something that will happen very, very soon as well. And same as, was it Grace who said it, but if anyone has any questions about like NatSci internships, I did a couple, so I can also answer any questions. Yep, that is all.
Thank you, Julia. And we might round out this discussion with Tamsin.
Hi, Tamsin Carolyn, Senior Fresh Chem Rep, she, her. So I think a lot of people in my course, at least from what I know, would have voted that they don't feel supported in this, because around this time, we see a lot of people in other courses go look for internships where they get to develop their understanding of the field they're going into. So you'd get an understanding of academic internships and then like opportunities to work in professors' labs, or you might get, industrial internships. But so far, we don't really hear about any of those. Most of the experience-related internships I get referred onto are by students in the years above me that like might have seen these and would send them on and would be like, "Are you interested?" But we don't really, like, when I took a quick glance through all the career services emails that we get, most of them are really vague. So they might be for things that us students in chemistry don't necessarily feel equipped to apply for, because we really are just geared towards, labs and academia, and we don't really know how to apply what we learn in college to, say, other pursuits outside academia. So that's why a lot of people in my course in my year would feel very unsupported, I'd say.
I mean, you raise an interesting idea there, in that a lot of the information you got is from other students. I suppose a lot of the conversation we've been having is about what the college could do, but I mean, the SU exists as well, and we can do things as well. So you think, would it be helpful for us as an SU to set up some sort of like, I don't know, information sharing way that people who had done internships could put their name down somewhere? It's like, if you are doing this course and you want to talk about internships, you can talk to me, or here's my experience, these are the companies I talked to. And we just have something like on the SU website that might be useful for people, or do you think that would be a bit of a waste?
I think that would be useful, because I know from like my experience applying for different things this year I didn't know how to write a lot of the stuff. So like how to do a project proposal in a way that like is more professional than say my lab report, and like writing all these things that we don't really get given advice on, and you have to go to students that have done it before. So that would be something very useful, and I'd say a lot of the people I know would be interested in that, instead of having to like ask a friend if they know someone in like a couple of years older than us who has applied for a certain internship.
And I mean, it's evidence in the chat tonight that with Grace and Julia, and I'm sure others I missed, who've done internships previously, readily offering advice. So I think getting people to offer that advice wouldn't be a massive issue. So that might be something. Might leave that note with the president while he's here. That could be something we look into later on. We'll have to jot that down as an actionable there. Okay, so I realize it's now 7:30, so we'd like to wrap this up quick we can. There are other things in the agenda. I promise if it reaches 8 o'clock, I'm just going to turn off my computer. So we are going to be done by 8, but hopefully by 2:45. So,
Will I set the Zoom to crash again at 8?
Yeah, perfect. So we'll quickly run through these. I don't think there's anything else of interest here anyway. I'm going to ask the deputy though to speak to some of the gender discrimination data. Although I think you spoke about it last time, did you?
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold people up too much with this, because I did give a fairly lengthy discussion about this at the last faculty assembly. But also, this stuff is kind of looks prettier on the Diversity and STEM Instagram if you want to go there and have a look at it. But this stuff sort of speaks for itself. So yeah, it's a little bit shocking, but it's also what we found. It's stuff that you can very easily address with small incremental changes and things like our podcast to try and run a more passive campaign, that sort of thing. But yeah, if anybody has any pressing issues or questions or things like that, you can email me, and we'd be happy to hear any ideas for diversity in STEM.
The beautiful diversity in STEM Instagram page. If anyone isn't already following it.
There's the contentious Code First Girls graphic.
Okay, so, and then I think we already talked about engagement and the fact that yeah, people don't really know who I am specifically. It's interesting. Any questions about any of that, or shall we move on? Any questions about anything that was in the mid-semester review? Like across the entire, I know I've only looked at some of it, we've only highlighted it. Any questions about why things were done certain ways? Anything like that, because it's the last time we're going to discuss it in faculty probably. And we'll hopefully have another one of these this semester, run slightly better based on some of the lessons we learned. Just a warning to you guys, that's coming again. If there are no questions, move on with each other. Okay, open access. And unfortunately, Liam Kavanagh left earlier. This is just a realistically going to be a quick update because we don't have much time to discuss it. But this is just a low-key campaign that I decided to run. And by campaign, I mean like it's basically a lobbying effort. And I got some advice from Liam Kavanagh on it. And if anyone else is interested in this stuff, I implore you to reach out. We can work on this together. Basically, I'm really interested in open access research, open data, all these sorts of things. And I was looking into it for the college, and I noted the college has an open research policy. So if you don't know about it, college has an open access repository called TARA, T-A-R-A. And the rule is that all published research that isn't under NDA is supposed to go into this repository, and this is separate to if you saw the Plan S email that we all got from Helen Shenton, the librarian. That is different. That things have to be published in open access journals. So Trinity already operates an open access repository, and now most of research in Trinity is required to be published in open access journals if possible. And this means that like people's theses and dissertations, all that sort of stuff, are all published. There's another part of the policy saying that all data sets that are uploaded, that are used in research, should be uploaded to Tara where possible. And this is where things get funky, because I emailed the people that run Tara, so the research, Trinity Research Center, and I asked them how many data sets were uploaded, because you imagine that, particularly in STEM, pretty much every single piece of research that's being published is going to have data associated with it. Unless it's like a maths proof, pretty much anything experimental is going to have a data set attached to it. And in total, of the couple thousand pieces of research that are published on Tara, there are 18 data sets uploaded, which is obviously not that much. Because if we look at other examples of institutions with open access policies, a shining example is the University of York. If you go onto the University of York website, you will find single PhDs that have 18 data sets with them. Because University of York have this amazing policy where literally you just upload all your data. It doesn't have to be clean. You can like go in there and you'll get just these really messy Excel files that like undergrads use for their final year projects. That's like formatted in really weird ways that clearly work for them. And I think it's kind of beautiful that it's just that raw, this is literally what they use for the research, because it means that, what it means for students is that when you are doing your final year project, if we had this culture of these data sets were uploaded, you would be able to use this data more readily, and you'd be able to do more interesting final year projects, because you wouldn't have to spend so much time chasing down data sets or replicating data sets. So that's interesting to students. And the long-term goal of this, myself and Liam were talking about, was to try and get, like, this is very long-term. We have no idea if this is even possible. I haven't spoken to the Dean of Research about this yet, because there currently isn't a Dean of Research. But like the long-term like heart goal is to make Tara and other open access repositories citable. So I said at the top that there's like a difference between open access repositories and open access journals, and I think it's really dumb that there's a difference between them, because Trinity College is paying money to operate Tara, and then we are also paying money, and this is taxpayer money. Remember this. This is mostly money that me and you have paid to the Exchequer in our taxes, and then being brought back in SFI grants. And then Trinity is paying twice to, one, put it on their own website, and also paying an open access journal to host it on theirs. And often the fees to publish an open access journal are in the order of $7 grand. 7 to 10 grand is a pretty standard fee for an open access journal. And in sciences, this is obviously a large expenditure. It adds a lot to the budget. But I was talking to Dr. Kieran O'Neill in the Department of History, I believe, and he made the point that it really limits humanities, because that could be their entire budget for a research project. So this is kind of like a very, very long-term thing. It's not a council mandate or anything. It's just something that we're kind of working on in the background. But as I think it has an important point that the data sets being uploaded could help people with their final year projects, I said I'd bring it as a discussion point to see if anyone has any opinions that they'd like to share on the topic. Lovely. You're all so enthusiastic about open data. Well, that's the thing. If anyone is interested, drop me a Slack or drop me an email or whatever, as I said. This is just a thing we're working on in the background. Could be fun. But yeah. And then final proper agenda item, final discussion item, shall be from the deputy.
Yes, thank you. Basically, I just wanted to bring this up as a quick note about the group Mobilise Peace TCD. I don't know if many of you have heard about them, but recently it seems like they've been making contact with class reps, particularly in the natural sciences, and I don't know how far out into STEM that will extend, but basically the reason I brought this is because Mobilise Peace are bad. The reason they're bad is that they're I wrote a really lengthy document and it's very angry, and I won't bore you all and read it, but Mobilise Peace TCD kind of run on this theory of change, which is like their whole idea for how how their movement should work. And their theory of change is the exact same as Extinction Rebellion's, which is that if you get arrested and if enough people get arrested, then your demands will be heard and your campaign will be run. And I just want people to really consider the implications that has if somebody from Mobilise Peace TCD comes to them and asks them to disseminate that information to their class, because, you know, that theory of change is really dangerous for people who are existentially threatened by police violence, and it's not the answer, and there's definitely better ways to do that stuff. I have a whole list of reasons why Mobilise Peace TCD are bad. If anybody would like to hear them, I'll happily share my document, but I would just really, really ask that if somebody comes to you and asks you to spread that information or to sign their petition, that you really consider what it is that they stand for, and if that's something that you align with.
Yeah, I believe Mobilise Peace is aligned with or allied with or some way associated with System Change Ireland.
They are run by the same person, yes.
Yeah, so if you've heard of System Change Ireland and the sort of things they've gotten up to and the criticisms that they have had leveled at them, is the same group. So just to be wary of that these people can come with nice sounding messages, and, you know, the climate crisis is obviously something we should all care about, and just to be wary that not all people seeking the same goal as you are people you want to ally with.
Yeah, because they really do come across in the message that I've seen, you know, approaching class reps. They come across as like, hey, we're trying to combat climate change. Will you sign our petition? And I think a lot of people have like climate anxiety and things like that, and they're like, hey, yeah, the climate and biodiversity crisis is really bad. I will sign this petition, but I just ask that you really, really read the stuff that they're sending to you and what it is that they stand for, because there's many, many other ways that you can contribute to tackling those things, and I really don't think this is it.
Has anyone here been contacted by them? Would like to comment on it? The Natural Sciences Convenor put her face in her hands, so do you have any comments on this, Julia? Julia's keeping her mouth shut. Dylan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Dylan Krug, key him, JS Environmental Science rep. Yeah, I just want to say one of my classmates came to me about spreading this, like advocating on behalf of Mobilise Peace in our class group chat and everything. And I do generally believe the student was extremely well-meaning, and I think it's important to keep in mind if anyone has a student come forward to them. Like, I think a lot of people can get roped into this, and a lot of people can assume that they are like combating climate change and helping create a better world. So I just tried to be very polite to them and be like, I think the response I gave was that, you know, this is very political, and the SU tries not to be explicitly political. Yeah, just be wary of that sort of thing. Like, most of them are very well-meaning, but I'd say do your research before you push any petitions.
That's a good general point there from Dylan, is that like there are a lot of people trying to achieve the same things as you, but make sure you know how they're trying to achieve it. You can agree with their goal and not with their means, and that it doesn't speak ill on you if if you turn them down, even though they are trying to protect against the climate crisis. It's perfectly okay for you to say, no, I think this is like you have a duty of like trying to protect the well-being of your class, and you can say, I think this is not in the interest of the well-being of my classmates for me to share this information. If there's nothing else to say, we shall swiftly move through to the end of the agenda, and then we can all leave. Questions, so you can ask me or anyone else in the meeting anything you want. Bev has a question. Deputy.
Yes, it's not so much a question, but rather the junior fresh engineering rep sent apologies for the meeting, but asked that it would be raised about in-person classes and costs. I believe it was regarding materials for practicals being sent to them, and they appreciate that, but they really want to have in-person classes. I can't really speak to the issue myself, but I promised the student that I would raise it, and so I have.
So the cost of materials for in-person classes that never ran. Did I hear that correctly?
No, the student. Sorry, that was my mistake. So they're sending out kind of the little bits and pieces to do the practicals at home, and the student commented that they were very appreciative of that, but they still feel like they haven't got enough in-person class, and they wish that kind of thing was prioritized. It's more or less this kind of the same issue we're seeing across the faculty. But again, I was asked to raise it, and so I did.
Yeah, no, even though it is a perennial problem, it's still worth saying that.
Yeah,
it's a perennial
absolutely.
problem.
Tamsin? Yeah, this is more so aimed at the physics convener. Just a number of people when talking about cost of materials. I think this falls more so into the physics category than the chemistry one. There was a module run for first year chemistry last year that was physics for life sciences, in which we paid €35 to access a website where we have to do our assignments. And they played it off as us getting a book, but it was actually an online book rental for a year. So we don't actually get to keep the book in the long run or get a physical copy. So we got a nice ebook that we could have gotten for free online under the guise of that's how they tried to justify us paying for this platform, and it was for one module that we don't take again.
It's physics.
And the same thing happened for the biology first year course as well, because they had the module at the same time as us. That was run by the physics department.
You may have just missed it when we were discussing it earlier, but this is something that sorry, PowerPoint seems to think I was talking to Matthew. No, this is something that was raised to us. It was noted in the survey on additional costs. It's a fight that myself and the physics convener are in the midst of with the school. We think we can win it. We're very confident. We're in the process of drafting a reply to their most recent lists of dumb reasons why it should be allowed. But unfortunately, it's something that won't be fixed for you. You won't get your money back. I'll say that right out. But we think we can get it fixed for people after you. We think that people incoming first years won't have the same problem. But unfortunately, the fact that it happened to you is kind of unrecoverable. But again, thank you for raising it, because it means it's just more fuel to the fire for us to get it fixed for next year's first years.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be more beneficial, because it's not like we were paying for a physical book like the physics course did. We were renting an online book to submit our homework.
I will make one comment just about mastering physics while you're here, in that when I was in first year, we had a similar situation with a platform called Wiley Plus, but I did manage to milk that for all it was worth, because I realized that there was more on the platform than was assigned to us for homework, and I managed to keep using this textbook for about 3 years, even though we only had it for one module in first year. So, I mean, if once you've paid money for this book, don't discard it. Do make use of that book as much as you can now that you have it. That's just one comment I'll leave on. Julia, you have your hand up? Oh, actually, no, sorry, Leah, please have your hand up first.
I think it may be for the same thing. I just wanted to bring up an issue that geography and geoscience have been having with some bio modules. I don't know if I should bring up now or in any other business. But basically, up to this point, all biology modules for us have been optional. And just this semester, we have had to take some credits in terms of biology, either a 10-credit module or a 5-credit module. Before the 5-credit modules, neither of them had prerequisites, and we're having issues in that there's a lot of references to previous modules that only biology students have done, or kind of glossing over things saying you've done this before, you should know this, and just things not being explained properly basically. And the students brought up to me yesterday that they had emailed the coordinator and the biology administrator about it 3 times and hadn't gotten any answers. And I just put a quick poll up in my course group chat a couple hours ago just to check how many people this affected, and the majority of people answered said that that it affected them, in terms of that they hadn't done that this is the first biology module they've actually done in college. So I was wondering if we could get a hand with getting contact on that, because we don't seem to be getting any answers.
Has the TRO 60 like biology things? Yeah, Bev, have you been working on this, or like?
This is the first I've heard of it. Right
Yeah,
now.
I only heard about it yesterday. I put it up in Slack. I was talking to the NATSI convener about it.
Super, yeah. If you could just pass on the names of the modules and the module coordinators, I should be able to get it addressed.
Yeah,
Because
no problem.
we had a similar issue with geology, and I think that they've done in the past is they've changed the weightings of things depending on which course you come from.
Yeah, my kind of sorry, Julia Natsai convener, my plan for that was to send out another, am I muted? No, I'm not. Sorry, was to send out another email, but this time have both Dan, I was going to say Dave, Bev, Megan, and all the reps CC'd in that, and just kind of be a little bit more direct with the lecture, because Leah forwarded the geosciences class rep forwarded the email to me. And the guy was being very, very nice to the professor, and I'm never this nice to professors. So maybe if we're actually just a little bit more direct with them, they might actually respond. I will try to get on that tomorrow morning because it's quite late today already.
Yeah.
The
Unless
workflow I'd recommend for class reps is try email on your own first, and then if you don't get anywhere, then get the school convener involved. And then if the school convener doesn't get anywhere, I can start making noise, and if I don't get anywhere, then Megan will start making noise.
Yeah.
I found over the years that if you kind of escalate by step, you tend to get more results, because if you go too high too quickly, people get quite defensive. I've seen just lecturers get very, very defensive because the education officer was emailed before anything was said to them at all. Whereas if like a class rep just emails them, they're generally like a bit more chill about it.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that, like, Bev, if you end up sending the email first, then that's fine. You can just kind of sort of create a thread pressuring the lecturer into responding and doing something about it, which is what we did with the zoology module before Christmas, and it kind of worked. So
I feel like this might be organisms to ecosystems, and I can't for the life of me remember who coordinates it.
No, it's microbes, immune systems and their interaction, and then genomes, disease, and diversity.
I'll forward you the email, Bev.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, genomes should be okay. I think that's like Jane Farrer, and she's generally all right once you get through to her.
Okay. Thanks. I'll send an email tomorrow then.
Awesome.
And we might round this out with a SCSS convener.
Yeah, SCSS convener, him. It's a question for you, Dan, actually, because I don't know the policy around this. But is there any policy or otherwise around lecturers changing the weighting of CA after the grading of the CA? So, for example, if it's a CA, grade is laid out in the course description and described that way for, let's say, most of the module, and then it's changed after grades are received. Now, I can see the reasons why that it can be. Obviously, for if things go wrong or some CA doesn't happen, you have to kind of pad it out, or to inflate the grade for students if something went particularly wrong, various reasons. But I'm just curious if there's any kind of like recommendation or otherwise around that, because there's been a few instances of it this year. Obviously, with COVID and that kind of thing, it's happened a bit more common. But I'm wondering if there's any kind of policy or weighting or anything you can go behind it.
So I will get back to you on specific policy. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the policy, but there is a policy which talks about grading has to be fair and consistent, which is probably the best way, because it falls into this class of problem, which is like a problem so dumb they never thought they'd have to have a policy for it.
Yeah.
There's nothing in policy about changing weightings, because in theory, once it's in the module description, that's it pretty much locked in. So there's nothing about like how it would go about changing the weighting, because weighting just shouldn't be changed at all. But you raise a good point of, it's a thing that we don't want to have locked in too heavily, because as you say, it is sometimes useful for lecturers to fiddle with the weighting a little bit and just bring someone up to 40.
Yeah,
it's one of those delicate situations where, you know, it's not necessarily beneficial for us to look behind the curtain too closely.
Yeah.
But if it is like becoming a problem, obviously we can. If you take this offline with me.
Okay, cool.
There are some people we can make noise with and try and get things changed. Although it is the dumpster fire school, so.
Yeah, it does. That makes sense. I mean, like, look, I can see why some of our module descriptors, the total percentage for the year only adds up to 80%. So, you know, the module descriptor is kind of fairly fluid. But yeah, okay, that makes sense, Grant. That's thanks for answering that.
Okay, well, I will say that if there's any more questions for myself or any of your school conveners, I would ask you all to take it offline, because we are 3 minutes to our hard cutoff. So we will just move on to any other business. If anyone has society events they would like to hype, now's the time. I know it's not really a thing at the moment, but if anyone has anything else they would just like to advertise, this is free advertising. Go for it.
Remember to register to vote for sabbatical elections, and tell your classes to register to vote. It'd be really cool to not get like 30 emails from people saying that they can't vote. So yes, do that.
For reference to anyone who doesn't know, Matthew Henry, as well as being the SSS convener, is one of the people that built the online voting system, which means that all technical problems, whether they are legitimate technical problems or not, go to him.
And yes, I do get shit posts every time we open up elections.
Okay, and closing us out, we have Julia.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so first of all, the thing that I mentioned before, ZooTalk is going to have a careers talk for all of NatSci sometime in late March. We're still working on it. That's one. And two, we will have Martin Linney come in to talk to ZooTalk next week, and he is the curator of the Zoological Museum in the Zoology Building, and he will talk to us about some of the cool specimens. So come to that. And yeah, same as Matthew said, just please register to vote in the SU elections, because it's important. Democracy, yay.
I'm sure I don't have to mention, I'm sure you all know, but myself and the deputy both have a bit of an interested stake in you all voting. So that's the only thing we'll say about that. I'm impressed that we managed to go through the entire meeting with that being the first time that was ever alluded to. But that's the end of our faculty assembly. Thank you all for showing up. And the things that were mentioned tonight, we'll try and follow up on best we can. We'll fill in on the Slack as we do. And thank you all for showing up. See you when I see you.
Everybody, take it easy.
Thanks, guys.